got Luna. That's not even a question, okay? I've got her.
Thank you.
All right, let's go home.
Patrick Dempsey, beloved actor and longtime Grey's Anatomy star, has been named one of the 100 most influential people in oncology in 2025, honoring his powerful impact beyond Hollywood. While fans know him best as Dr. Derek Shepherd, Dempsey's real-life legacy is deeply tied to cancer advocacy. After his mother's ovarian cancer diagnosis in 1997, he founded the Dempsey Center in Maine in 2008, offering free emotional, wellness, and support services to cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers. His work has helped shift oncology conversations beyond treatment, emphasizing dignity, community, and quality of life. Following his mother's passing in 2014, her compassion lives on through the Amanda Dempsey Award, which honors resilient cancer survivors each year. This recognition places Dempsey among global leaders shaping the future of cancer care, advocacy, and philanthropy. Meanwhile, Grey's Anatomy delivered a dramatic mid-season finale in Season 22, Episode 6, When I Crash. Jo and Link face a terrifying medical crisis when Jo is diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy, leading to an emergency C-section as Winston is forced to deliver the babies himself. The episode also reveals a major twist for Richard Webber, who pushes relentlessly to save a critically injured patient, only for viewers to learn the reason why. Webber has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, setting up a deeply personal storyline ahead. Elsewhere, romantic tension explodes as Quan and Dr. Mohanty share a steamy elevator moment, while Simone and Wes' chemistry simmers. As the series heads into its winter hiatus, emotional stakes are higher than ever. Hey, lovely viewers, welcome to our channel Grey's Anatomy Official. Patrick Dempsey recognized among the 100 most influential people in oncology in 2025. Patrick Dempsey is an American actor and philanthropist whose cancer advocacy has become a defining focus of his public life. While widely known for his acting career and his role in the TV series Grey's Anatomy as Derek Shepherd, Dempsey has consistently used his public platform to elevate cancer awareness, survivorship, and community-based support. His commitment to cancer support is deeply personal. In 1997, his mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. In response, Dempsey founded the Dempsey Center in 2008 in Maine, providing free, comprehensive support services for individuals with cancer, survivors, caregivers, and families. By removing financial barriers to care, the Dempsey Center has become a vital resource for hundreds of people each year, emphasizing quality of life alongside medical treatment. After Amanda Dempsey's passing in 2014, her legacy of compassion and service was formally honored through the creation of the Amanda Dempsey Award, presented annually during the Dempsey Challenge. The award recognizes cancer survivors in Maine who demonstrate resilience and a commitment to supporting and inspiring others facing cancer, reflecting the values that guided Amanda's life and Patrick's advocacy. Through the Dempsey Center and its programs, he has helped shift the conversation beyond treatment alone, underscoring the importance of emotional support, dignity, and hope for everyone affected by cancer. The 100 Most Influential People in Oncology in 2025 recognizes the changemakers in cancer care who have helped shape current practice in oncology and continue to drive innovation and research towards better outcomes, advocacy, philanthropy, leadership, and education. For the many deserving individuals not mentioned in this list, we will continue to acknowledge, honor, and elevate your voices in our daily publications from across the world. You're a Grey's Anatomy official recap, Season 22, Episode 6. It's a busy day over at Grey Sloan Memorial as When I Crash gets underway. And doesn't that just feel right for our mid-season finale of Grey's Anatomy? Jo and Link and their babies are put in a precarious situation, Webber delivers some troubling news, and people who have never made out with each other before make out with each other. On an elevator, no less. It's a lot to chew on as we head into our winter hiatus. Let's talk about it. Choose your own adventure, newborn hellscape. At the end of last week's episode, when Jo noted that the way she was leaking wasn't normal, she was not kidding. At first, it seems like the babies are fine and the cervical circlage is holding, but things go off the rails quickly when she suddenly gets short of breath. To be safe, she wants cardio to check her out. If anyone knows how to advocate for a pregnant patient, it's Jo. Link doesn't get a hold of just any cardio doctor to run tests on his wife, he gets the cardio chief himself. Link going immediately to Winston to check on Joe is a telltale sign that Link is freaking out. A sign, as it turns out, that is quite necessary since Link and Joe have a major problem, both are terrified about what's happening, but neither wants to stress the other out, so they're pretending everything is fine. This is a terrible tactic. Sure, they need to remain as calm as possible for Joe's and the baby's health, but pretending you're doing okay, as the news gets progressively worse, doesn't help anybody. This becomes especially true when Winston and Ben, who has an excellent poker face, by the way, finally inform Joe and Link what's going on. Joe has peripartum cardiomyopathy. Her heart is failing. Winston, who has no real OB experience, is about as calm a doctor as you could ask for at a time like this. At this point, Joe still has some options. First, she can take some medication that might prevent things from getting worse. If the meds don't work, there is a pump they could install directly into a ventricle, which would support the heart and give it time to recover. The pump, though not ideal, would give the babies more time in utero. They should have 7 more weeks. The nuclear option, of course, is an emergency C-section 7 weeks early. Sigh, we all know where this goes. When Link catches Winston and Ben alone, he asks them, as a friend, how worried should he be? The time for poker faces and pretending everything is just fine is over. This is serious, but they are watching it. Joe is their priority. It would be nice if an OB doctor could check on her. Where is Karina DeLuca when you need her? Still, the guys push on with their course of treatment. Did anyone actually think the meds were going to work? Things quickly take a turn. Joe's blood pressure drops dangerously low, and she's having even more trouble breathing. Ben and Winston rush Joe out to the OR to place the pump and, hopefully, stop her from crashing, just as Link walks in after making a call to check on the kids. It is chaos. The man is distraught. I'm starting to feel bad about how much I judged him for singing his vows. Sing your vows, dude. Sing whatever you want. Oh, did you think once Winston and Ben got Joe into the OR things would be a breeze? You've never watched this show before, have you? Before Winston can do anything, the OB nurse says she's lost both fetal heart tones. The babies need to be delivered now. Unfortunately, no OBs are currently available, and this really isn't something you can table until someone's schedule clears up. Winston, who hasn't performed a C-section since med school, will have to deliver Joe's babies. He grabs a scalpel, and he makes the first cut. Push it. Push it real good. Worrying about Joe and her babies won't be the only development vexing Grey's Anatomy fans over the winter hiatus. Richard Webber is in trouble. And it all starts with Teddy finding Owen naked in bed with another woman. Well, sort of. You'll see. After Teddy and her kids walk in on Owen and Nora in bed in Owen's trailer, both the doctors happen to be in the area when a major, multiple motor vehicle accident leaves a cyclist trapped under a bus. Teddy and Owen get over their awkwardness to prevent Maisie from bleeding out right there on the street, even when it takes Teddy crawling under that unstable bus to place a tourniquet on Maisie's leg to stop said bleeding. Maisie is upset for so many reasons. Being trapped under a bus is probably, number 1, including the fact that she and her boyfriend recently broke up over what now feels like a very stupid fight, and all she wants right now is to talk to him. This situation with Maisie is clearly supposed to parallel Teddy and Owen's situation. If it's not clear when they are trying to save Maisie's life, it should be when Teddy runs into that ex-boyfriend, who is in tears, asking if Maisie is okay, and is overwhelmed with regret for ever walking out on her. Are Teddy and Owen rushing to divorce when they might regret it? If something were to happen to either of them, wouldn't it be the other person they'd want with them? Teddy isn't convinced. Their situation is complicated, but staying together just isn't working. For her, this separation is hard, but it's right. All of which is to say, nothing has changed with Teddy and Owen. Well, one thing has changed. Nora officially puts a stop to whatever she and Owen were starting. She needs to rely on Teddy for her health, and getting in the middle of this divorce makes it too messy. So, Teddy and Owen are basically the same, except Owen is even sadder. What does all of this have to do with Webber? Well, another victim Owen and Teddy bring in from the pileup is Glenn, an aide to an autistic person named Aaron. Glenn's injuries are extensive, and his chance of survival is, let's call it, low. So low. But then, Weber arrives in the and swears they are going to save this man's life. When he has to tend to another patient, Bailey takes over, and it becomes clear to her that there is nothing more to do for Glenn. They need to call the time of death. Once again, Weber walks in just in time. They are not calling the time of death, they are going to save this man. Bailey disagrees, and stands there aghast that Weber would keep pushing this. But push he does. They open Glenn's chest and inject his heart with AP before doing chest compressions. They are not giving up. They are going to give Glenn everything they've got. Suddenly, he has a rhythm. Weber was right to push, he saved this man's life. After Bailey finishes fixing all of Glenn's injuries in the OR, she goes to apologize to her mentor and friend for fighting against him with this patient. Weber was right to fight for him. It's then that it becomes clear just why Weber was so desperate to save Glenn. Weber has just learned from his urologist that he has prostate cancer. He is about to be the patient. He will be entering his own fight and hoping that his doctors fight just as hard for him too. On your service. Thankfully, the Gray Sloan residents are having much better days than the attendings. It certainly doesn't start that way. Weber sends out an email informing all residents that they need to increase their caseloads by 10%. People are stressed, to say the least. Quan is eyeing one case he'd like to add to his load. Dr. Mohunty is scheduled to perform a tram flap later that day, and he wants in. Mohunty is worried that if she agrees, she'll look like she's favoring him, especially since she just told Lucas no when he asked to join her in the OR. Alas, Quan is her favorite. She cannot resist the Quan charm, and we ask, who can? So, she makes him a deal. If he can place a wound vac on her 80-year-old patient Frank, he can have the surgery. The catch? The ulcer that they are trying to keep clean and let heal is right next to the anus, and this has made it impossible for anyone else to properly place it. But what's a little anus-adjacent ulcer to Quan when a coveted surgery is on the line? Quan enlists Lucas and his intern for the day. Danny, you remember her from the season premiere. Meredith had to operate on her in the clinic, without telling his friend that he'll get the surgery Lucas wanted if they get this wound vac sorted out. However, Frank, the grumpiest old man to ever grump, spills the beans, and Lucas rescinds his offer to help. Danny stays to help Quan, but soon he's called away to the wound vac can't be placed, and Frank will need an ostomy to give that ulcer a chance to heal. Frank pretends like he's not upset by this news, but it's clear to Danny that he is. It's Danny who convinces Lucas to go back and try the wound vac again, thanks to a heartfelt speech about taking an oath to heal people. Frank is old, and an ostomy could come with a lot of problems. They owe it to him to at least try. We all know that behind that brooding face, Lucas is a softie, and so off he goes back to the anus ulcer. He does ultimately place the wound vac, but he also pretty curtly dismisses Danny while doing it. But again, the guy is all heart, and when Mohunty offers him the tram flap, he asks if Danny can scrub in too. Don't feel too bad for Quan though. He bumps into Mohunty on the elevator, wink, wink, and informs her that he's not torn up about losing out on the surgery. He knows there will be more surgeries. When he wants something bad enough, he will do everything in his power to get it. It's Mohunty who asks if a tram flap surgery is all he wants. His answer? He stops the elevator, and they furiously make out. I told you Quan was her favorite. If the elevators take the top spot in the Gray Sloan hotbeds of sexual tension rankings, supply closets have to be a close number 2. They certainly make a run for number 1 in this episode. Today, Wes is put on Simone's service, because of course he is. The two of them wind up being put on errand duty. When the ambulance pulls up with Glenn, a distressed Aaron runs out and away from the hospital. Simone and Wes track him down to a nearby park bench. Aaron is nonverbal, and he's clearly agitated, but he has a headlock they'd like to get a closer look at. It's Wes who winds up finding a way to bond with Aaron over basketball and their bad experiences with hospitals. Wes' younger brother has epilepsy, and eventually Wes is able to convince Aaron to come inside the hospital with him. It's still a bit of a tag team effort for Wes and Simone to actually clean the headlock, but Simone is impressed by not just Wes' bedside manner. When he turns down a chance to place a chest tube to stay with Aaron, she is also moved by his ability to put patient care over getting the flashier procedure. Tensions seem to have softened between Simone and Wes, and he notices it too. It is, perhaps, why he makes a little move on her when they find themselves alone in the supply closet. She is very clear that her compliments were not an opening for something to happen between them, again. It is also very clear that the tensions between them have moved from the angry kind to the other, much more fun kind. The supply closet doesn't get any play today, but don't count it out just yet. Sadly, we now must wait a few weeks for Grey's Anatomy to return, but it won't be too long. On January 8, 2026, on ABC, we'll all be ready to scrub in, and if the writers are listening, Jolink better be holding their healthy baby girls. Every core member of Grey's Anatomy arrived on our screens wildly ambitious, slightly broken, and ready to grow. Over 2 decades of scalpels and second chances, the interns, residents, and attendings of Grey Sloan have evolved right in front of us, fighting to save lives and, just as often, finding ways to save themselves. But to understand just how far they've come, we have to go back to where it all began. In our new series, The Evolution of, we're going to take a moment to trace the essential parts of some of our favorite doctors' stories, starting with, of course, Meredith Grey. From the moment we met Meredith, she was a bundle of contradictions, a brilliant surgical student with a bright future, a core wound so deep that it would take years to fully unpack, and a desire to be loved, even if she couldn't figure out how to let herself be loved. We've watched our title character grow from a conflicted intern into a medical icon. Along the way, Meredith has stumbled, resisted, and occasionally run headfirst into danger. But she has also evolved into someone who knows her worth and chooses joy, which feels like a far cry from where she began all those years ago. Your official Grey's Anatomy recap, Season 22, Episode 5. AA's our omnipotent overlord Meredith Grey informs us in this week's voiceover on Grey's Anatomy, there's always one patient who can change everything for a doctor, someone who leaves them with a change in perspective or with whom they have a powerful emotional connection. And based on Simone's, Kwan's, and Joe's experiences in Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, Mare is proved correct. Isn't she always? Simone's taking a ride on a real roller coaster of emotions. What a way to end a shift, huh? Simone is almost ready to wrap things up and hand off her patients to Lucas, but when Lucas is late, Aunt Amelia is in Boston, apparently, so there's no one to kick him out the door. Weber assigns Simone to do the workup on recently transferred patient Regina Evans, who is suffering from congestive heart failure, renal failure, and hospital-acquired pneumonia. She is annoyed at first by her ex's tardiness, but that changes when Simone notices that one of Regina's personal photos she has set up around the room is of Simone's mother, Denise. Simone is obviously taken aback. Not only is she meeting someone who knew her mother better than almost anyone, but Regina, also pretty shocked to be face to face with her best friend's daughter, starts telling her stories of their crazy, rebellious teenage years, such as sneaking pot into a concert by A Tribe Called Quest and staying all night, only to receive some serious lectures from Mama Joyce, Simone's granny. Simone's overwhelmed with conflicting emotions. Her father always described her mother as a serious, straight-A student, and now she's learning that wasn't the full story. It's as if she's getting to know her mother for the first time. As is tradition at Grey Sloan Memorial, the situation with Regina gets much more complicated. She has an aneurysm. It's not emergent, they schedule a surgery to remove it the next day, but it is concerning. Still, the wait gives Simone and Regina more time to chat, and before long, Simone confesses that she and her sister aren't close because Ebony blames her for their mother's death. Simone blames herself too. She made her mother a statistic, she tells Regina. Regina rejects all of this, of course, it wasn't Simone's fault, but she understands the weight of that guilt. She's been carrying it around too. Toward the end of Denise's pregnancy, Regina got a dream offer to study at a prestigious culinary institute in Paris. She was going to wait until after Denise gave birth, but Denise told her to go. If she had been there, maybe she would have pushed harder for the doctors to pay attention to what was happening. She begs Simone to let her carry that burden of guilt and to go live her life to the fullest. It's what her mother would have wanted. Just as they are having this emotional breakthrough, Regina's oxygen drops, she codes, and as hard as Simone and Lucas fight to bring her back, there is nothing they can do. Regina dies, and Simone is left devastated. If we're looking for any sort of silver lining to Simone's wild and emotional few hours, it could be that seeing how hurt Simone is after losing Regina and how overwhelmed she is after so many of her mommy issues are stirred up, Lucas remembers that despite the breakup of their relationship, he still cares about her. He takes some time off from his brood-a-thon to offer her a ride home. She declines, but the fact that he offers, that he has softened his steely post-breakup feelings, is a sign that maybe these two can find a way to get along again. Kwan's doing house calls now. If there's one thing we know that will stand the test of time with this generation's batch of young Grey's Anatomy residents, it is that Benson Kwan will forever and always have a soft spot for single moms. We mean that in an empathetic, typically medical-related way, or maybe not. You never know. That is what happens when, during a shift at the clinic, he realizes that a patient, Mercedes Hernandez, has been a no-show at multiple appointments, and this time she hasn't bothered to even call and reschedule. Mercedes, who has PCOS and diabetes, has also missed her prescription refill, and without keeping her blood sugar in check, she's at risk for a whole lot of complications. Something about it just doesn't sit right with Kwan, and as the clinic closes down for the night, he decides to make a little house call and brings Jules, who really just needed a ride home after a long day, along for the ride. Kwan has a spidey sense that lets him know when single moms are in trouble. When he and Jules arrive at Mercedes' house, she can't even get up from her couch, and her mother and young son Javi are scared. When Kwan sees that not only does she need an insulin shot but that she also has a nasty diabetic infection on her foot that has made one of her toes necrotic to the point that it falls off her foot when touched, he wants to get her to the hospital before she loses her whole leg. Mercedes refuses. She's heard there are ICE agents waiting around the hospital, she's had a cousin taken off the street, and she has no idea where they've put him. Her status was revoked just a few months ago, and now she's terrified that she'll disappear too. She is so scared, she won't leave her house even if it means putting her life at risk. It is infuriating. Kwan calls for backup, and Bailey arrives with a fully stocked ambulance so that they can treat Mercedes right outside of her house. Bailey and Kwan are able to save Mercedes' foot and make her promise to have someone pick up her meds from now on. But just because there's a happy ending medically speaking, it doesn't mean Bailey isn't upset. She's angry that this is the current state of things, in which people are going to die because they are living in fear that they'll be ripped away from their families. It's cruel, she says. It's inhumane. She's also not just a little bit annoyed that Kwan and Jules went rogue with a patient. She's proud of them for going above and beyond but reminds them this is a fireable offense, if she wanted it to be. For now, it'll just be a warning with a big ol' thank you attached. Bailey, always with the salty and the sweet. Hey, on the less life-threatening end of things, Jules winds up spending a lot of time with Mercedes' young son Javi and his velociraptors, Benito and Josh. Javi, like many kids in his situation, is scared every day that his mom might be taken away from him. His velociraptors give him comfort, and it's a comfort he wants to pass on to Jules to thank her for staying with him through the scary parts, and so he gives her Josh on her way out. Jules, in turn, offers Josh to Winston when she runs into him at the hospital and finds him stressed about presenting Nora Young's surgery to a room full of people. He, of course, turns her down since he's an adult and all, but still, he appreciates the thought. And we know this because that man can't keep his eyes off Jules as she walks away. Josh the Velociraptor knows what's up, and so do we. Joe and Amy and Kevin. Joe Wilson finds herself dealing with two stubborn people, who both, as it turns out, have very good reasons for digging into their opinions. Link, still recovering from his near-death experience, is out of sorts because his mother is pushing him to get the twins baptized once they're born. Link isn't religious, and he doesn't want to baptize his kids into a religion he doesn't believe in. Scout's not baptized either. Joe doesn't mind the idea of getting the kids baptized, and in a surprise to everyone including Link and all of us in the audience, Joe is kind of religious. She's never once hinted at this before, but she seems adamant when she tells Link about a nearby Korean church she would go to for meals as a teenager and how she was jealous of the community people formed there. She tells him how she prayed when he was hurt, and it brought her comfort. It's all well and good but does feel a little out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Link, just as confused as the rest of us, tells his wife about a church group who would visit him and the other kids in the cancer ward when he was young and make sure they knew God was watching over them. Even as a kid, Link questioned how this could be true if children were dying. And he certainly doesn't see God in what's happening in the world now with the planet burning and people starving. He hated it when that group came around. He also reminds Joe that there are other ways you can find your community. Alas, these two will have to table this discussion. Joe is dealing with a high-maintenance patient. Amy is in labor, and she refuses to change her birth plan, a vaginal birth, with no medication, even when Joe discovers the baby is breech. Joe can attempt to turn the baby before delivery by performing an external cephalic version, but it's not guaranteed to work, and it's also painful without meds. Much like that baby Joe is trying to turn, Amy will not budge on her plan. There comes a point where there is nothing else Joe can do for Amy if she won't let her be her doctor and do what she thinks is best. Amy calls out for her husband, Kevin, only to reveal that Kevin died 3 months ago. Surely, Amy must feel like her life is out of her control, so being so strict about her birth plan, controlling this situation, makes a lot of sense. Amy tells Joe about her husband, and Joe reminds her that this baby is a part of him too. The reminder works, and Amy hands the reins over to her doctor. Joe delivers a healthy baby girl. Your official Grey's Anatomy recap, Season 22, Episode 3. The gas explosion that closed out Season 21 certainly turned Grey Sloan Memorial and its doctors on their heads for a bit, but 3 episodes into Season 22, it feels like Grey's Anatomy is back to business as usual. Of course, for this show, business as usual means risky surgeries, angsting over heartbreak, and finding a way to exude sexual tension even while in an or with another human being's body cut open in front of you. Oh, and also, apparently, shaking down car salesmen. Yup, just a regular Thursday in fictional Seattle. Let's talk, between two lungs. Everybody, just breathe. Meredith's new work setup, in which she'll be spending summers operating in Seattle, also means that for a few months every year, Grey Sloan is gaining the services of world-class transplant surgeon Nick Marsh. These little cuties are a package deal. At the moment, Nick has a 6-year-old patient named Ryan with bronchiolitis obliterans. He's desperately in need of new lungs and has been sitting around on ECMO for what's now becoming a risky amount of time. Nick knows that simply hoping for a match from a deceased donor, the typical standard of care here, doesn't give Ryan much of a chance. Instead, Nick wants to perform a bilateral lung transplant from 2 living donors, Ryan's dads, Stephen and Vivek. Lung transplants from living donors aren't the norm, this is cutting edge and comes with some major risks. Even though Stephen and Vivek would each be giving up only the lower lobe of one of their lungs, they'd have diminished breathing capacity for life and could suffer infections or strokes. It's not some simple procedure. Still, even after Winston voices some major concerns, and he and Meredith go back to Ryan's parents to make sure they understand what the risks are, both Stephen and Vivek couldn't be more adamant that they want to do whatever gives them the best shot to save their son. Vivek, especially, is moved to tell his doctors that he has zero hesitation. He entered Stephen's and Ryan's lives when Ryan was only 2, and now he can't imagine his life without his son. It's very sweet and is a nice reminder of what they're working toward. As Nick says over and over, this surgery is about saving an entire family. Winston still isn't so sure this is the best course of action. He's nervous. Jules catches him ahead of go time getting hyped up with his little pre-surgery playlist. Release the playlist, Grays. But it turns out that isn't actually what gets Winston in the right headspace to save Ryan. The real push he needs comes from Jules. She's surprised to hear that her attending has so much humility and, to be honest, so many insecurities when it comes to his skills as a surgeon. Most surgeons have real god complexes. We know this, we've watched 22 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. She thinks that humility is what makes him such a good doctor. He's not looking to show off. He is there to give his patients the absolute best care he can. This means that when he hits an obstacle, he always finds a way through. As far as pep talks go, it's not a bad one. Although if these two are attempting to diffuse the sexual tension between them, this is not the way. As it happens, Jules' words portend what's to come the moment Ryan, Steven, and Vivek are put under for their surgeries. Seconds before Nick opens up Vivek, they realize he has a fever, which means he must have some sort of infection. He can't be a donor. Not today, at least. The bigger problem arises when Nick goes to tell Winston, who is in charge of Ryan's surgery, that they need to call it off. Winston already took Ryan off ECMO, and he doesn't think someone as young as Ryan could survive being put back on it. There's no good way out of this until, well, what if they cut Steven's one lobe into 2 pieces and fit those into Ryan to act as his lungs? It all comes down to Winston, king of lungs. Can he do it? He does some quick math right there in the OR with everyone watching him, which, honestly, is more impressive than anything else I've ever seen in all 450 episodes of this show. It all adds up, and with some eyes passing between him and Jules, seemingly saying, "You've got this," Winston tells them it's possible. And guess what? It is. Once again, Winston's skills save the day, and Ryan's life. Later, he thanks Jules for her pep talk with a bashful, flirty face that screams something is going on here. Feelings are being felt. At least, it screams those things to Simone, who is now totally onto them. Thank God it's not just us and Weber anymore. There's another cute effect thanks to Ryan and his family. Aside from assisting with multiple lung transplant surgeries, Meredith is spending the day bugging Nick about something Boy Bailey confided in him. It doesn't matter how much Meredith tries, Nick refuses to break Boy Bailey's trust. But as Meredith spends more time with Vivek, she's reminded how lucky she is that her kids have such a close bond with Nick that they can trust him with the big, important stuff. Listen, I still want to know what Boy Bailey is up to. Is he dating someone? But it is admittedly quite lovely to see this family unit working so well after everything they've been through. When Miranda Bailey worries, we all worry. Miranda Bailey is having a good day. Excuse me, was having a good day. You see, it starts out full of fun pastimes like watching her newly installed chief resident husband celebrate his big promotion, getting to see him bond with her second dad/best friend interim Chief Weber over their chiefdoms, and getting to remind both of those fools that being chief comes with mountains of paperwork. By the end of the day, both Ben and Weber come to realize that once again, Bailey was right. But that's about as good as the day gets for Miranda Bailey. Not long after, one of Bailey's patients, who is about to undergo chemotherapy for stage 2 gastric cancer, arrives at Gray Sloan in an ambulance after getting in a car accident. Katie has some internal injuries and will need a splenectomy, and while this will certainly push back her chemo treatments, over and over again Bailey reminds her that the only time she should start to worry is once Bailey looks worried. Bailey does not look worried yet. Well, to be fair, she looks kind of worried, but that's less about Katie and more about the obvious tension between her 2 residents Lucas Adams and Wes Bryant. At the start of the shift, a still quite sour Lucas finally says out loud what all of his curt answers and eye rolls have been screaming at Wes: "I'm angry at you because you slept with my girlfriend." Of course, when Wes goes to Simone and tells her she should have at least given him a heads up, she clears up the situation. She didn't cheat. She and Lucas were not together when she and Wes found themselves tangled up in the bathroom at Joe's. Lucas is just taking this hard. Some may call him unreasonable. Some may have other choice words for the way this full-grown adult is acting. This, of course, only makes things more tense between Lucas and Wes and only makes Bailey's job harder. Eventually, she has to separate the two, and while in surgery, she sends Wes on an errand, relegates Lucas to retractor duty, and reminds the troubled second-year resident that his emotions have already gotten him kicked out of the OR once this year. He needs to get it together. Lucas doesn't have time to defend himself because the moment he looks down at Katie's liver, he notices tumors growing on it. Her cancer has spread. When Katie wakes up from her surgery, she doesn't even need Bailey to tell her the news. She can see it all over her doctor's face. Bailey is very, very worried. They'll need to run some additional tests so they can restage Katie's cancers, but it does not look good. Now, that's a bad day for everyone involved. Hey, at least by the end of the shift, Bailey can see her words to Lucas getting through. He sets aside his feelings to actually start teaching the intern. That's some kind of win. Speaking of bad days, Quan really makes a mess of things with his new plastics fellow Kavita Mohanty, played by newcomer Anita Kalathara, doesn't he? Quan's riding high, he believes he's finally figured out his specialty, and he's going to be on the new Plastics Fellows service that day. To make things even better, he gets to put a new intern in her place to start off the morning, even better than a cup of coffee. It's not long, however, before Quan realizes that the intern he told off is actually the new Plastics Fellow, Dr. Mohanty. I'm sorry to tell you that things don't get better from there. He repeatedly makes her day harder, messes up with their patients, and by the end of the shift, the only advice she has for him about how to make things better is to stop talking. That's going to be a tough first impression to erase. And now, we bring you Teddy's moment of joy. When an overwhelmed Joe asks Teddy to tag along while she goes to buy a new car for her expanding family since Link is still in the hospital recovering, she has no idea about the menace she has set loose in that car dealership. Teddy loves negotiating. She lives for it. And honestly, she's pretty good at it. Daniel the car salesman certainly doesn't think he'll be playing hardball when these two women walk in the door. But while the setup of this storyline is about Joe buying a new car, it's actually about Teddy moving forward as her divorce becomes real. When Daniel starts talking to Joe about all the memories her family will have in this car, Teddy leaves in tears. She tells Joe what's going on and about the guilt she feels for tearing her family apart. Joe, who has been through divorce, reminds her that her kids deserve a happy mom. It will get better. Teddy just needs to find small things that bring her joy to help her remember who she was, to help her remember how to be happy. Teddy finds several moments of joy that day. First, she is able to get Joe an excellent deal on a new car. Then, she buys herself a sexy new Cadillac. But the real kicker comes later when she drives that sexy new Cadillac to pick up none other than Cass Beckman, and the two furiously make out in the front seat. Now that's a real moment of joy for Teddy Altman. Your official Grey's Anatomy recap, Season 22, Episode 2. At the end of the Grey's Anatomy Season 22 premiere, Meredith Grey was adamant that to get over this latest tragedy at Grey Sloan, they would rebuild. And in this second installment of the season, the 450th episode of the series, by the way, that's exactly what we find our doctors doing, both literally and emotionally. While construction is underway on the ore floor, everyone is finding, and many are struggling with, how to move on from what happened only a week ago. While everyone has their own way to process their trauma, there does seem to be a common thread. Everyone is taking baby steps and finding comfort through community. It's, honestly, very healthy. Especially for this place. Picking up the pieces. It's been a week since the explosion and all the chaos and loss that came with it, and people at Grey Sloan are not doing well. Take Jules, for example. Jules is doing that thing where she pretends she's fine, but by the way she's yelling "I'm fine," everyone knows she is definitely not fine. She's supposed to be tending to her brand new interns while on Winston's service, but she is agitated, and the more Winston wants to talk about what happened and how they're both coping with Beltran's death, the worse it gets. Not surprisingly, these two wind up with a patient who teaches them, especially Jules, the lesson they need to learn right now. The only way forward is by sharing your feelings with your people. The patient is an older Cambodian man, brought in by his concerned daughter. In his youth, he fled the genocide in Cambodia in the 1970s, but he never spoke about the horrors he faced, including both the physical and emotional traumas. Previous surgeries his daughter had no idea about left him with a condition called splenosis, in which cells from his spleen became implanted and grew in his chest. By removing the accessory spleen, much of his chest pain should be alleviated. His emotional pain? Well, alleviating that will take some opening up to others who have been through it and or who care about him. The same goes for Jules. She's having panic attacks during procedures. She calms herself by naming things she sees, a technique Winston says he uses too, and is snapping at everyone. By the end of the episode, however, she realizes she needs to talk about what she went through and properly grieve the loss of Dr. Beltran. She decides to call on her people to support her, Simone, Quan, and Lucas. They hold a makeshift candlelight vigil in the intern hallway. Jules talks about what a privilege it was to learn from Dr. Monica Beltran. Another coping mechanism running rampant at Grey Sloan, denial, an old favorite. Link has a long road of PT ahead after his near-death experience, but he refuses to acknowledge that he needs to take things slow. He pushes himself so hard that eventually he falls over in his hospital room, and when Joe tries to help, he yells at her to just leave him alone. Thankfully, Owen realizes what's going on, reminds Link that screaming at his pregnant wife isn't a great look, and tells his friend to let some of his obvious anger and frustration out on him. Link unloads. He's resentful of Joe for looking at him like a patient, he's resentful of his body for not working, he's angry that Monica died, that his patient died, that his scrub nurse got hurt. He knows he should be grateful because he came so close to dying, to not growing old with Joe. He's okay with the physical rehab, but he's not sure how to emotionally come back from what he experienced. There's no easy answer, but he knows that healing starts with opening up to Joe. Owen's inspired by Link's realization that he needs to take baby steps to recover. As Joe says, rebuilding your life doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It's a step-by-step mentality. In this episode, both Owen and Teddy, facing divorce, take what seems like the first steps to rebuilding their lives separately. For Owen, that seems to mean tracking down an Airstream and living on the land again. It feels right to have an Airstream cameo in the 450th episode, doesn't it? For Teddy, who is completely overwhelmed with administrative work and missing the high of surgery, that means handing the keys of the hospital over to Weber. He's happy to take on the chief of surgery role until Teddy figures out what she needs. Weber becoming chief of surgery. Also very fitting for such a major milestone of an episode. Like the blades of a forklift through a chest cavity, so are the days of our lives. Hey, whenever you're brooding over a perceived bad day, please remember that there may be someone out there who currently has the blades of a forklift impaled through their abdomen. That's called perspective. When a construction crew member outside of the is left dangling in the air, held up only by the forklift blade through his chest, husband and wife duo Ben and Bailey attempt to make sure this man doesn't have a really bad day, if you know what I mean. Ben, now a fifth-year resident, is feeling good. He's feeling confident now that he's gotten the permanent gig at Gray Sloan, again, and has seemingly won over the person who turned out to be his white whale, Teddy Altman. In fact, when things start to go south with the forklift guy, there's the need to cut the blades before bringing him to in or to remove them and fix the damage, and the guy is losing blood and is unable to breathe, and things are taking entirely too long. It's Ben who suggests an awake intubation right there in the ambulance bay. And it's Teddy who backs him up. He carries that confidence into the or with Bailey. It's a delicate and complex surgery, but Ben is cool and calm and in control the entire time. This is especially helpful since in addition to this delicate and complex surgery, there's a whole lot of romantic angst in the room thanks to the ongoing soap opera that is Simone and Lucas' relationship. It certainly doesn't help matters that Simone's one-night stand Dr. Bryant is in the room too. Lucas is still steaming over the fact that Simone slept with someone else and that she doesn't think it's a good idea to get back together, and he's making snide remarks and giving her a lot of attitude. It's not a great energy to bring into an or where a man's life hangs in the balance. Or, like, any room where you don't want to annoy people. Get a grip, Lucas. Alas, he is a man ruled by his abundant emotions, and eventually, mercifully, Ben kicks him out of his oar. Bailey has never looked so turned on by her man than when watching him calmly dismiss an underling and then crush a surgery. I mean crush in a good way, the forklift guy survives. Ben has saved the day. His reward? Bailey asks him to be chief resident. At the end of the day, things are less rosy for Lucas and Simone. When they exchange words about what went down in that or, Simone side-eyes at Bryant while Lucas is talking about the rando she slept with give it all away. Lucas realizes that the rando is one of their new interns. Sisters. As was made clear last week, Amelia blames herself, and her inability to help little Dylan Gatlin, for the explosion that took her friend, almost took the father of her son, and hurt a whole bunch of other people. It appears Amelia's guilt and grief have taken slug form. She refuses to get out of bed, she hasn't done her laundry, and her grocery situation is slim. This woman is existing from dumping shredded cheese from a bag into her mouth, because I get that. Serious question, where has Lucas been living since the explosion? I know he has his own drama, but, like, help your aunt out. Never fear, the sisters are here. That's right, not only is Meredith on Fix Amelia patrol, but Maggie flies in from Chicago to be there for her sister too. Once the group learns that Amelia's washing machine is broken, they force her into a field trip over to Mare's old house to do some laundry and some chatting. While Amelia is mostly resistant to any and all help, it turns out she's not the only sister who needs, well, her sisters. Surprise! Maggie is pregnant, thanks to a sperm donor. She didn't want to tell Meredith and Amelia because she was afraid they would talk her out of being a single mom, but she is very excited about it. In true Meredith form, her response is both that it's wonderful and it's going to be so hard. But just as the sisters convened for Amelia, they assure Maggie that if she ever needs them, they'll be in Chicago immediately. She's not doing this alone. The rest of their time together is mostly spent reminding Amelia that she was trying to help Dylan and that all of them have made mistakes or had bad outcomes with patients before. Maggie even invokes Sabi's name, a truly dark time. The sisters also take a quick detour into considering opening a wine bar together, and let it be known that I would watch that show if Grey's Anatomy is looking to do another spin-off. But really what the day brings is a reminder that these three women have a real support system with one another. This is perhaps what gives Amelia the courage to go into Grey Sloan and inform part-time Chief Weber that she'd like to take a sabbatical and be with her people for a while. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.